Ah, thank you. I'm so sorry. I forgot that my OBS was on mute. Apologies, folks. Thank you for commenting. Hopefully you guys can hear me now. All right. Apologies again, folks. My mic was on mute there. But it was basically just recapping yesterday. We faded into open that carried. We fell down to our zone made from this 3961, 3953. Popped out of that zone, but ran into that trend line from that pre-market fade. Sent us back down to the bottom of the zone, where we popped out above VWAP, and we came back because we were basically in a wedge, right? That wedge fired up into this 30-minute squeeze. That also fired up, but then we drifted right back. Tagged that key level, tried to get going one more time, got stuffed in that same zone near that daily Keltner, and then we had a nice breakdown. On days like this, the reason I wanted to review it and kind of make a few points, on days like this, when we aren't directional, it's basically an inside day. I like to try to only take action at key levels. So you can see only going long off of like this 3953 was a decent long. I mean, it was definitely a hard one, but key level reversal is going to provide good opportunity. And then also, when we finally do break out of a wedge and start to trend up, we should always be drawing our trend lines from lows, right? Because that's going to let us know if we're going to break down on a pullback. On this rejection and fall back to VWAP, it was pretty quick that we lost VWAP and that trend line, and then faded further, right? We got near the bottoms of all these squeezes, caught a nice bounce, and then a higher low, and that set up that crazy end of day rally. So definitely a tough day yesterday. I know that we all hit some calls for a little profit, some puts for a little more profit, but it was pretty tough going. So on days like this, it's always good to size down and just, try to catch a little bit at a time, not be too greedy, and, definitely recognize when we can't get going and can't get going to the upside. There's always a reversal that's looming somewhere, so zoom back out. So, and yeah, Pineweb, I know what you mean. It always seems easy in retrospect. That's why we have these reviews and these preps every morning to talk about how we did, what we hit, so that we know what to look for. Most of the time, we like to try to take entry around these squeeze clouds. So like Friday when we were opening in squeeze clouds and could not get going, it was a clear rejection kind of day. Back to our key zone at this 3953, 3961. Held that zone, tried to get going but kept holding that zone, and look, we're still holding this zone, and now our squeezes are super tight all around it. So just looking at what is possible today, chances are we could see another inside day, especially leading into a Fed day tomorrow. And now all of our squeezes are stacked very tight. So we're going to play the range until the range breaks. We've been holding that zone all night. Our 30-minute squeeze has now gotten very tight around that zone. So when we hit the bottom, we'll be looking for potential bounces and to go long to the top. When we hit the top, we'll be locking profit and shorting back. And we'll do that until the range breaks. Before I dig into much to what can happen today, let's take a quick look at our economic calendar. We do have a little bit of economic data today. Home price index, consumer confidence at 10 a.m. Tomorrow, some durable goods, capital equipment. And then at 2 o'clock, the Fed's target rate and Powell press conference. FOMC, we know how these can go. So we could very easily chop today and tomorrow into Fed. We've also seen instances where we rally into Fed, but we have to go with the price action we're given. And hopefully you can all see we're basically just coming to a very tight wedge point today. So let's see if we do start to get a direction out of that. You can see we've been holding this trend line. We slipped it a little bit yesterday, overnight, we're a little bit below it. But if we update that to include these lows, we're still kind of holding that trend line. And when we slip it a little but we're still holding it, I don't necessarily say that we're losing trend line just yet. It's when we reject it and dive, right? So let's see if we can update that trend line just slightly. There we go. Just a slight update to include yesterday's low. And you can see that trend line is kind of our support as well down in the squeeze bottom. So if we are truly going to start to break down today, it will have to start to lose this 39.53, lose this trend line, and start to dive through our squeeze clouds. We do have our daily 8 sitting right down at 39.35. Yesterday it was down under 39.30, and we did not make it there, right? Now it's stepping up a little bit. So if we start to lose this 39.53 in this trend line, first stop would be that daily 8. Come on, don't do this. Below that daily 8, we have our daily 50 sitting around 39.22. So 2 targets below, still somewhat within all these squeezes, that we could tag to find support to head higher. If we can start to get above this 39.61 and push into these squeeze clouds, definitely looking to get back to that daily Keltner that we rejected yesterday as the first upside target, and the second one being that 4,000 up above. So those are just 2 close targets if we do start to break out of this range. But we could very easily just chop around this range, kind of bouncing between this week's lows, yesterday's highs. We'll have to see. No, don't take forever to load. NQ was definitely the weaker one yesterday. Seemed like a lot of rotation out of NQ and into YM. And we basically made it back to the daily 8. We have not given it a full tap yet. So wouldn't be surprised for NQ to take a dip at open to test that daily 8 and the squeeze bottom. Luckily NQ is a little, it's not as stacked with squeezes, but we do still have a couple of squeezes. So let's see if we can hold that daily 8, this 12,250 squeeze bottom. If we start to lose that, we are likely going directly down to 12,100, where the daily 15 and the daily 21 sit. They're also crossing over today, so that we are now completely in a bullish stack of moving averages. The 8 is above the 15, which is above the 21, which is above the 50. So congrats NQ, you're the first to make it to a fully bullish stacked moving average. So if we do start to break down today, excuse me one second, hold on. If we start to break down today, we're going back to that group of moving averages below. I would say definitely worth marking some trend lines from highs. And you'll notice I did not use these just because they were so dramatic and wicky. You know, to me that is outlier data that actually follows another narrative, right? So we have our trend line from the highs to keep an eye on today. And we kind of have our floor that's been set. You can see back here, this 250-ish is the floor that's kind of being set. So let's see if we can hold this daily 8 in that floor to try to get up and test this wedge and get above it, a bid to get back to 12,500. And if we start to lose that floor, we're dropping back to moving averages below. So pretty easy targets above and below, and we're going to be opening pretty much right in between. Ready. Ah, come on. We cannot have it loading this slow. I'm going to try to just go quickly. Ready held its trend line yesterday. So today, let's see if it wants to go tap that daily 8 and that trend line one more time. Let's see if we can get going to the upside. Pretty clear wedge going on, and very tight range, very tight stack of our squeezes. So let's see if Ruddy just stays in this range, if it can get going to the upside or start to break down. YM. You know, YM basically didn't do anything yesterday, but at least on every pop for the market, YM was kind of leading the charge up to that 32,000, but then it got stuffed each time. Now our squeezes have stepped down. We're hugging this 31,800. Let's see if that key level can hold. If we can get going to the upside, we need to break through 32,000 to try to get any further upside. If we start to lose that 800, we're going back to the daily 8 and daily 50 down below. And we can get to that daily 50 and still be contained in this 4-hour squeeze. So we're at the top of a daily squeeze on all indices. We're in a 4-hour squeeze on all indices. Our daily squeeze bottom is down here. So just bigger picture, if we do have a negative reaction to FOMC tomorrow, we have had a great run up. We're at the top of this daily squeeze not breaking through. There is a chance that if FOMC does not go well, we'll lose this 4-hour squeeze and start to make the journey back through moving averages. And we could get back to daily squeeze bottom. It is saying NQ fired its 4-hour squeeze, so I'm going to go take a look at that real quick, even though I know we already covered it. Alright, so here's NQ's 4-hour squeeze. It's saying it fired downside, but we aren't lower, right? So it's basically just saying that it's disappearing and firing to the downside, but we have to lose that daily 8 and actually head lower for a true fire. So we'll see what we get. But it is starting to tap that daily 8 as we're talking. Apple. And frankly, if it's going to take this long to load things, I'm probably just going to hit a few names and call it. Yesterday, Apple was definitely one of the weak names. It dropped out of this key zone, came back and rejected it to head lower into the day, into the end of the day. Let's see, Apple, same with some squeezes going into open. Its 4-hour is sitting just below where this daily 8 and Keltner were yesterday. Those will each be stepping up slightly, basically where we're tagging right now. So let's see if the daily 8 and that Keltner and this 4-hour squeeze bottom are enough to hold Apple up, get it to reverse, and get back to our key zone above. If this daily 8 Keltner and 4-hour squeeze bottom cannot hold around this 151, we're likely going back to key level at that 148, which the daily 15 is probably going to be stepping right up above that. And the daily 21 is probably going to be stepping into our little zone here. So, zone above as a target, zone below, and right in the middle we have potential support. So let's see if it can hold, send us back above, or if we break down, next zone. Amazon, I'm skipping AMD. So Amazon down from Walmart reporting earnings. just like we saw last week for Google and Meta. They dropped on Snap earnings. Amazon kind of dropped on Walmart earnings. So, Amazon going to be opening around that 115 and at its daily 21 and daily 15. Let's see if those can hold. And that 115 key level hold for Amazon and start to send it back up to recover. If that 115 gives out, likely going to 113, that's daily 50. And if that can't hold us, that first Keltner down is around, going to be around that 112. So let's see if this was just reactionary and if they take it right back up or if they continue it down. I could say last week for Google and Meta, they did continue it down. So Google, here's that Snap earnings. They took it down further, back to the bottom of a daily squeeze. They're not really picking it up either. So Google continues to sit at the bottom of this daily squeeze, already below the first Keltner down. Let's see if it can hold this daily squeeze bottom at about that 106, 105-ish, and start to get a bounce. The goal for Google would be to get back to moving averages above. But, relative weakness versus other names that have relative strength. So not a lot of interest right now in Google, but looking to see if it can hold that daily squeeze bottom. And if we can get a decent reaction on FOMC, this could make a good recovery this week. I'm going to take a look at GS real quick. Because, we just saw relative weakness. We have to recognize relative strength. And even though it's not really doing much and up near that second Keltner, this is a week of earnings for big tech. And a number of banks already reported, including GS. Point being, if we do a little chopping and waiting for some big tech names to report, we have Google and Microsoft after the bell today. We could potentially see some decent moves in other sectors, like finance. But looks like it pretty much did nothing yesterday. So it's also worth checking in on these things to know, since they are leading and staying up, if they start to break down, it will add a little fuel to the sell-off going on in the market. So like if market starts to slip and these start to lose key levels, let's say like 320 on GS, it could add a little fuel that things that are relatively strong are now giving out. So just one thing to keep an eye on. I'm just going to skip right over to Microsoft. So I talked about this yesterday in prep, drew a number of trend lines on virtually every name from our lows in this rally that we've been having. And yesterday, like right after open, I said, hey, a lot of these trend lines are giving out. Looks like a potential down day. Any pops back will probably be to test trend lines. So, a few names did break their trend lines. A few names did not. Microsoft was one of them. But you can see it fell to the bottom of this 4-hour squeeze and then just hung out and bounced. So for Microsoft, let's see if this 4-hour squeeze can continue to hold it today and send it back up to moving averages. They do report today after the bell, along with Google. So, let's see what we get on earnings today after the bell. It's going to be a big one. I realize that I've talked about earnings after the... Oh, there goes another trend line on UVXY. We'll take a quick look at that. I know I've talked about earnings, but I haven't shown this. Today we have Google and Microsoft after the bell. We also have like Visa, Chipotle, a couple other names. Coca-Cola, UPS, GE, McDonald's are all reporting right now. Tomorrow we have Meta, Etsy, Lam Research, Qualcomm after the bell. Before the bell, Shopify, Spotify, Boeing. All big names. And then Thursday we have that Amazon, Roku, Intel. After the bell, MasterCard before, and some healthcare and travel. So, just a quick glimpse at that, since I forgot to cover that this morning. So let's see what Microsoft and Google give us after the bell. They could likely both chop. So yeah. Netflix remaining strong, still up near its second Keltner. Got a couple of squeezes setting in, 2 hour, 4 hour, and a 30-minute. Luckily, I can at least see all this information before the darn chart opens. And its POC moved up to 220, which it basically just sat at yesterday. A little below it today. So let's see on Netflix if these squeeze bottoms can hold us. Send us back through that 220, which is POC, in a bid to get back up to these squeeze tops. Let's see if we start to lose 215. We do have one more squeeze around 212. But we could cascade through both of those to get back to the daily 8, which will be stepping up to about that 210. NVIDIA. Still just sitting. Yeah, not a lot of interest in NVIDIA. Sorry, I'm skipping some names because of this time it's taken to load. We need to wrap up this prep, so... I'm surprised it's taking this long to load. I gave everything a restart before I did prep, but it's like I need to restart again. So on QQQ, I had a tighter trend line yesterday. That when that alerted me that we were breaking below that trend line, that was kind of my first sign for shorting. And as you can see, Q's just fell to the bottom of that 4-hour squeeze. Bounced off it, came back to it, tagged the daily 8 for another bounce and a close. And today, still trying to hold where that daily 8 was. It's going to be slightly stepping up, so it'll be in this squeeze. But let's see if we can hold 298, 297, just outside of the squeeze in an effort to try to get back to 300 at the top of this squeeze and try to push further. If we start to lose that 298, 297, she could make a journey back to moving averages below and that 295 psychological level. SPX by Tesla, and we'll be almost done. SPX continued to reject that 39.75, this gap fill zone above the bottom of it, and then it broke trend line, which set up a nice short, And then there was that pop end of day. Gonna have a small gap down. So we have a key zone here on SPX. The daily 8 caught up to that zone, and the daily 50 is just below it. So 3 key levels on SPX hopefully can hold it up and start to send it back up today to test this gap fill zone at 39.75. Should these key levels give out, 39.36, 39.28, that daily 8, and that daily 50, which will be about 39.20. If those can't hold us up and we start to drop, it'll be straight to 3900. This previous gap fill, which did get filled, but I kind of left it around just in case. Now our daily 15, daily 21 have caught up to that. So if we lose that 39.20, straight down to this zone and those daily moving averages. If we can hold these key levels, looking for us to try to get back up above 39.50 to test 39.75, you know, with an overall goal of pushing to 4,000. SPY. Oh, SPY's still sitting near its first Keltner. POC at 395-ish, so did step up. On a number of these names, POC has stepped up, so definitely worth double checking if you have POC manually marked. So, POC has stepped up and is above us. Let's see if we can just hold squeeze bottoms, get back to POC, push through it and key levels in a bid to get back to that 400, although it's way up at the top of these squeezes. It looks like on SPY, our daily is almost gone and firing. So if we can get going to the upside today, that daily may be firing today or tomorrow. If we start to lose 393, we're going back to the daily 8 and 50, which will be kind of around 391-ish. If we start to lose those, down to the daily 21 and 15. So key levels below and above. Let's see what we get. We could just get a sideways day. Tesla still has POC way below. No real squeezes to talk about. Kind of near second Keltner. It's been holding above 800 decently after popping up on that earnings. Got a key level here at that 786. So let's see if Tesla wants to take a dip to that 786. You can see it did cause a reaction back here. So it may be that they want to retest that and base at it before taking her back up above 800, since we are slipping a little below it pre-market. And you could draw a trend line from the highs. If we get over about 810 today, Tesla could make a nice push higher. If we start to lose that 786, first target would be the daily 8, which is going to be coming in near 780. If we lose that daily 8, this key level, I'd say basically 775. If we start to lose that, we could get ourselves all the way back down to that 750. UVXY, I'm going to take a quick check just because I got an alert that it's breaking through a trend line to the upside, which could spell more downside for the market. So, UVXY. Starting to test this trend line pre-market. If it starts to break through that trend line and get north of 12, we could see the market taking a dip further. If this pops up to test its daily 8, which will be stepping down close to that 12. Then we'll see some names in the market start to take a dip to their daily 8, right? If we can stay below this trend line and head back to yesterday's low, we could see a nice pop in the market today. So definitely keep an eye on that trend line. And lastly, VIX. It does have its POC up at about 25.75. VIX with the silly gap up yesterday, but it held the gap. It did not go back to fill the gap, which would be getting back down below 23. And VIX right back up near yesterday's highs pre-market. We do have the daily 8 and the daily 200 sitting right at about 24.20 on VIX. So for us to see some decent upside today, VIX has to reject these two. It can maybe reach up as high as this 24.5, but ultimately it needs to get back below the daily 8 and daily 200 and start to push back down to 23.3 if we're going to see upside. But if we're going to see downside, then VIX will probably rip right through these to 24.5, maybe get hung up for a second with these squeezes, but then push on through to 25 where the daily 15 sits. And POC is up at 25.75, not too far from the daily 21. So hopefully this was helpful for everybody. Sorry it ran a little late. We'll see you all in the room today. Good luck, everyone, and remember, no beast, no feast. Thanks for tuning in. See you in the chat.